Your title is going to be placing fractions on a number line, and then underneath that, go ahead and draw a number line. You can label it 0 to 1. You do not need to write that bottom question. We're going to talk about that together, but your title is placing fractions on a number line, and then you can go ahead and draw your number line and label it 0 to 1, please. My number line right now is zoomed in really far. Right? You remember playing that game Zoom?
Yeah.
Can fractions only live here?
No.
So fractions can live bigger than 1?
Yeah.
Yes, they absolutely can. We're just zooming in between 0 and 1. But fractions can definitely live between any whole number. I want to know, where would 1/2 go on this number line? Where would 1/2 go on this number line? Yesterday we talked about a clue in the fraction to help you figure out where 1/2 would go. Where was that clue? If you weren't sure. What could I be looking at besides my fingers? Madison, do you remember the clue? Where could I look if I wasn't sure? Yes, ma'am. I want you by that number line, above it or below it, I want you to write 1/2. Today. Madison said, hey, we can look at that denominator to help us. How does that denominator help us? She's absolutely correct. I can look there for help, but what does it help me know? Jalen?
It helps you know that how many parts there are in the number line.
Yeah, I know now that there's going to be how many parts? 2. So let's break it up into 2 parts. Boom.
No.
What do you mean no?
I
I broke it up into 2 parts. That's what Jalen just told me to do, and I did it fabulously, if I might add. Why are you telling me no? Mackenzie?
Because you have to make the 2 parts equal.
I have to make them equal, right? Fractions are all about fairness. If I am sharing something, especially something delicious, like cake, I don't want the smaller piece. Do you want the smaller piece? No! We need to be fair. So Mackenzie's absolutely right. When I place my tick mark to make my 2 parts, my parts have to be equal size. Put your finger on one part. Is your finger on space or is your finger on the tick mark? Space. Put your finger on the other part. I'm going to ask a kind of tricky question. You ready? How far is it to go from here to here? How far is that? What is that distance? This is the part where you raise your hand, Sam. Or you think in your head. How far is that jump? It's kind of tricky. Theo, what do you think?
It's part of 1/2.
It is 1/2. How do you know that jump is 1/2?
Because I know if the other one's 1/2, the other one's 1/2.
Yeah. It's kind of weird to think about because it's at the end of a number line. But that piece, if I just only look at that piece, cover up the other pieces, cover up the other pieces, cover up the other pieces. You can't cover up all the pieces. That one piece is worth 1/2. Well, what if I had both of them?
Then it would be one
Then
whole.
it would be one whole.
Once you
This jump is worth 1/2. I'm putting it in the bubble because this jump is also worth 1/2. The bubble, the jump. Does that make sense? So I'm 1/2 here, and then if I went 2 jumps, I would get 2/2. Bryson, if I did another jump, let's pretend my number line kept going. Same jump. Where would I be? 3/2, yeah. 1/2, 2/2, 3/2, red half, blue half. Just kidding. But I'm counting by half-size pieces. Does that make sense? I just keep going. Kobe?
Instead of 3/2, you could just have one whole.
Yes. So Colby is bringing up another language thing that we can use to talk about. Colby is saying, hey, instead of saying 3/2, I could say that's 1 whole and another half. You are absolutely correct. That is technically called a mixed number because it has a whole number plus a fraction. We don't really play with those a whole lot in 3rd grade, but you will see them a ton in 4th grade. But yes, you're correct. Those are equivalent. Draw another number line. You can label it 0 to 1. Near that number line, I want you to write 2/3 because I want you to put 2/3 on that number line. John, what you need?
So, can there be some in their number, a centi or anything? There be like a 1 or a 2 second.
Hang on one second, Evelyn. When I find 2/3, would finding 1/3 help me?
Yes.
Probably. On your notebook, you're going to write down where 1/3 would go and 2/3. Don't just plot 2/3 where you guess it might go. Use your 1/3 to help you. Evelyn, what's up?
So if we were trying to show 2/3, and we did the number line.
Yep.
And then we didn't do the one that you saw first, but we did the 2 other ones.
Sure.
Would that be like the same as modeling with the bar model? Because when you shade them in.
So it wouldn't be wrong, but it'd be a lot harder to make it right. Well, Evelyn's asking, can I just plot 2/3 on there without putting any other fractions? Yes, you can, but it gets harder to put it in the right spot. Whereas if you put the 1/3 on there first, it makes it easier to get that 2/3 in the right spot. Does that make sense? Okay. How many pieces am I going to have on this number line? How many total pieces am I going to have on this number line? Why don't you look at the board, Sam? Okay, then how many total pieces are going to be on this number line? How do you know that?
I looked at my denominator.
Yeah, my denominator tells me in 1 whole, I've got 3 pieces. Does that mean 3 tick marks?
No.
Bryson, does that mean 3 tick marks? No.
Not just 3 tick marks, but they have to be equal.
Equal size pieces. Give me a Me Too signal if your number line looks very similar to that. You might have more stuff than me, but you got your 3 pieces. Where's 2/3 go? Keegan, where's 2/3 go? Just don't put your elbows on it because it'll think that you're writing. Is that right? How do you know? Other than we're just trusting Tegan. I got faith in Tegan. I think she's right. But how do we know? Prove it to me. She can't copy Tegan on the EOG. Zach, how do we know?
Because the one behind it is 1/3.
Which direction are we going? We're going left or we're going right? Left. So you know this one is 1/3? Okay. Zach says, hey, I know this jump is worth 1/3. Which means this jump is also worth
1/3.
1/3.
Then
Which means this jump is worth.
1/3.
So if I was ending all the way over here, I would end at 3/3. You ready for a tricky question?
Yes.
Yes, you are. It sounded like a question, but it wasn't really a question. What is the distance between 1/3 and 3/3? How far is that? Remember, number lines are really good at measuring distance. That's why we count the space, because it's the distance. How far is it to go from 1/3 to 3/3? Heidi, what do you think?
2/3.
Why do you think 2/3?
It's in between 1/3 and 3/3.
Uh-huh.
Because on the number line, I see 1/3, and then I see 2 hops, and then I see 3/3.
Okay, so if we're counting my hops, each hop is worth how much? 1/3. 1/3. 2/3. If this was whole numbers, you would go 1, 2.
So which means that if it was whole numbers, then that means you're skipping a ton of fractions.
Sure. Sure. Last number line. Don't put it on there yet. Just draw your number line. Don't start putting the fraction on there yet. You can put the 0 and 1, yes. That's fine. I'm going to ask you, draw a number line.
I did.
You didn't, because we already did that one. We're on another problem.
I'm
I'm going to ask you where 7/8 would go. I want you to think about what that's going to look like. And I want you to try to predict. Do you think it's going to be close to 0, close to 1, or maybe in the middle? What do you think? We're just guessing. We haven't put it on there yet. We're making a prediction. Where do we think it might go? We're going to put 7/8 on our number line. Do you think it's going to be closer to 0, closer to 1, or somewhere in the middle? What do we think? We haven't done it yet, so we don't know exactly where it's going to go, but we're gonna make a guess of where we think it about will go. Huxley, what do you think? You think to the 1? Why?
Because after 1 is going to be 8/8, and if 7/8 is closer to 8/8.
Did you hear that, genius? Did you hear that, genius?
Yes.
Are you sure? Huxley, say it one more time. Listen up.
Because 8/8 is going to be on the 1, and 7/8 is closer to 8/8.
Yeah, Huxley says, hey, I know 8/8 is going to be at 1 whole, and 7/8 is pretty close to that. How far away is it?
I'm writing that down. I'm just writing
Go
it
ahead,
down.
Huxley.
It's just 1 jump.
It's one. What is that jump worth? It's only 1/8 away. So it's going to be pretty close. Go ahead and label all your 8s on your number line.
I'm writing it down. I know, so remember.
Fantastic. Go ahead and label all your 8s on your number line. Ooh, I love that Zach started with a half first. That helps make those spaces equal size.
I'm gonna reject that.
I love that I'm seeing Heidi count her spaces. So we have 8 spaces. Ooh, Colby and Kaden are labeling all their spaces. That's a good strategy. Once you've got them all
Miss Mom,
drawn out, go ahead and label them. Yes.
if we
Yes, you can make a new shorter number line. That is a good strategy. Instead of doing a weird big jump, right?
I used to do that.
Love it. Love it. You should have your 7/8 pretty close to one whole. Why is 7/8 pretty close to one whole? Why is 7/8 pretty close to one whole? Jalen? It's 1/8 away. Well, I only have to do one more 8th size jump, and then I'm at one whole. Find 3/8 on your number line. Put a dot there. If you haven't put a dot at 7/8, do that too, please. I'm going to count, John. Count with me. 0 8.
1 8, 2 8, 3 8.
All right, there's my 3/8. How far is it to go from 3/8 to 7/8? Ooh, I love that I see Mackenzie's doing some hops. I see Ryland's counting some spaces. How far is it to go from 3/8 to 7/8? Ariana? Is it 5/8? I have no idea. I haven't done it yet. Let's count. Ready? 1 what?
1 8, 2 8, 3 8, 4 8.
4/8.
Yeah.
4/8. It took us 4/8 to get from 3/8 to 7/8. Evelyn? What are you noticing?
It took us 4 8s to get from 3 8s to 7 8, and when we're counting whole numbers, like 3 plus 4 would equal 7.
As long as we're counting the same thing, right? I can do that. Evelyn's noticing, hey, 3/8 plus 4/8 is equal to 7/8. That looks really similar to 3 plus 4 equals 7. 3 puppies plus 4 puppies equals 7 puppies. As long as my unit, what I'm counting, is the same, I can do that. What am I counting by here, though? Not puppies. I'm counting by 8s. You can do this with anything, as long as it's the same unit. I could say 3/3 plus 4/3 equals 7/3, because my unit is staying the same. Heidi?
Well, what if you don't have the same one?
Then it gets tricky, and then it becomes 4th grade's problem. It can, right? We know how to exchange things in equivalent fractions, right? So I could make it into the same unit, which is pretty much what you'll do in 4th grade, but it just becomes more work. It's nicer when everything's already the same thing, right? If I wanted to count apples and oranges, how could I do that? Because apples are different than oranges. What would my answer be?
Well, weigh your oranges and get one apple.
Maybe. My answer would probably be in fruit.
Oh.
You see, I've changed the unit. I've changed what I'm counting. You do that in fractions. You just change what you're counting, probably with something equivalent. But that's a 4th grade problem. All right, we're gonna do a word problem. Go ahead and you probably need to be on the next blank page. You don't need to write anything right now. I haven't given you all the information. We're just going to think about what information we need. So Finn and Dan are both writing stories. Finn is some of the way finished, and Dan is 2/6 of the way finished with his. What are you wondering? What do you notice? What are you wondering? Finn and Dan are both writing stories. Finn is some of the way finished with his, and Dan is 2/6 of the way finished with his. What are you wondering? Rylan?
I'm wondering what is the fraction with Finn?
Oh, you're wondering how far is Finn? It just says some.
Yeah.
Yeah, how far along is he?
Because Dan is given the fraction.
Sure.
He is 2/6 of the way done.
Absolutely. Not Rylan. Zach, what are you wondering?
I have an
Okay.
Finn wrote more
How do you know that?
because it said Finn is some of the way finished and Dan is 2/6.
Okay, well, what number is some? Turn around. So we don't know who wrote more. Maybe we could change that to we're wondering who wrote more, Finn or Dan. We don't know how much Finn wrote. It just says some. That could be a little, that could be a lot. John, what are you wondering? One.
Because if it says some, if it's some of it, maybe it's like he gave 3 of it, because 3 is the sum of 6, right?
No.
What's
Some
the
could be anything.
What's the sum of 6? What is that sum mean?
Some just means some part.
Okay.
We don't know exactly how much it is.
Maybe the 2 of 6 means that Dan finished 2 pages.
Could be. Could be. Colby?
How much Finn has wrote and what are the stories about?
Oh yeah, what are the stories about?
And like are you doing it in pages or like?
Sure. What are we counting? Are we counting pages? That's kind of what John said. John said, oh, I wonder if they're like 2 out of 6 pages. Like, is that denominator counting pages? We don't know. We don't know. Kaden, what are you wondering? Yeah.
I think that stories could be different pages or have a different whole.
Okay.
It doesn't say they're running the same.
Sure.
I don't think you can compare these.
Oh, maybe not. Let me ask this question. Is Dan almost done?
No.
Are you sure?
We don't know. We don't know.
We do know. Look at what Dan has written. We know what Dan has written.
Oh. No, it's not.
Dan has written 2/6 of his story. Is he almost done?
No.
How do you know?
We don't because
We do know, but how do you know? Let me ask this question, Jalen. What fraction would prove that you're all done with your story? What fraction would be you've written the whole story? One whole, but that's not a fraction, that's a whole number. What fraction would be the whole story?
Oh, 6/6.
6/6. He's only written 2/6. So is he almost done?
No. Halfway to the middle of the number.
He might be close to the middle. Yeah.
Like, where's the middle 6?
3/6 would be the middle. So we know Dan is maybe about halfway. Let me give you some more information. Finn and Dan are both writing stories that are 3 pages long.
Yeah. Yeah.
Same length,
He's not.
same whole, same kind of story. Finn is some of the way finished. Dan is 2/6 of the way finished. So we do know now, Kaden, that we can compare because our stories are the same length. They're 3 pages long.
Wait, oh, wait, now.
Sure. Heidi, what you wondering? What you notice?
In a way, you still can't compare. Because what if, like, Dan only puts, like, 5 words on each page?
We're going to assume that they are tight pages, which means that they would have to be the same story. Evelyn?
What if they're writing like different types of stories? Like, what if like Finn is writing a comic book, and Dan is writing a graphic.
Well, graphic novel is going to be the same thing as a comic book.
Or
Let me ask you this question. If I am comparing a chocolate bar that has almonds versus a chocolate bar that doesn't have almonds, if they're the same size, can I still compare them?
Yes.
Yeah.
Can I compare a mystery to a historical fiction as long as it's still a book?
Yes.
Yeah. Now we're going to compare two things. We've already talked about how making sure that whole is incredibly important, right? I cannot compare small pizza to big pizza. That's not fair. So we're going to draw two bars or number lines. What you feeling? Pick your poison. I don't care. But they need to be the same length. You can do 2 bars. I'm going to do 2 bars because I really am a fan of bars. If you're filling number lines, live your best life. The only rule is they have to be the same length. Why? Why do they have to be the same length? Bryson, why? So I can compare. It doesn't make any sense if I've got one tiny and one giant. Draw your thing. John,
I just noticed something.
what'd you notice?
So it's very pitiful. I don't know why I noticed, like, it used to notebook plan, but then these were the previous. See here, each of the notebook pages have 2 pages.
Yep.
And that's, I think, what it means in, like,
Maybe.
this picture it says,
What are you going to trade in? We still don't know how
that
much
means
food it is.
you eat, like, 52 pages of
Sure.
1 page.
All right, so let's talk about, I'm going to make my top one. I'm going to put a D for Dan and then an F for Finn. Now, with a number line, you can go ahead and mark it off. It's easy peasy. If you're doing bars, yes, you can make your bars look whatever, but when you're comparing, you're going to want to start at the beginning. What I mean by that is I'm going to make my bars. And you are correct. I could color this one and this one, and that would show 2, 6, right? But that makes it really hard to compare because they're kind of all over the place. So because I'm comparing, I'm going to smush them over to the side. So I'm not going to put them crazy. I'm going to put them right over here. Does that make sense what I'm saying? Like you can literally put it wherever, but it makes it easier for your brain when we're comparing if you smush them all to the side.
Yeah, like, what do you mean? How does it make it harder?
You'll see when we do the other one. Because you'll be able to see which bar is longer or shorter. Whereas if I did them all crazy, it would be harder to tell.
Oh, yeah, like, how's it harder?
I'm explaining it, so if you would not talk over me, you could get the answer to your
I
question,
didn't know
Sam.
you're explaining.
Well, maybe stop talking and listen. That'll solve that problem. So far, so good? We're good? We got 2, 6?
No.
Okay, I'll give you a couple seconds to get 2, 6.